I think he himself doesn't consider himself to be a Democrat. And, you know, look, he's raised a lot of important issues that the Democratic Party agrees with, income inequality first and foremost. But it's up to the Democratic primary voters to make that assessment. I've been in the trenches for a long time, and I believe in electing Democrats up and down the ticket.
Hillary Clinton on MSNBC's Morning Joe earlier today. Her message right there, fairly simple. Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. Secretary Clinton also taking aim at Sanders' platform, saying he doesn't understand how to deliver on his own promises. Clinton's latest attacks on Sanders came after that big win in Wisconsin for Bernie last night. But will the tides reverse and help Secretary Clinton in the upcoming New York primary? Let's talk about it with our panel. Appropriately enough, Skyping in from New York City, a senior political contributor for Forbes.com, Rick Ungar. Rick, of course, also co-host of Steele and Ungar on SiriusXM Radio's POTUS channel. And via Skype from Washington, D.C., Georgetown professor, Republican strategist, and former staff advisor to President George W. Bush, Brad Blakeman. So, Rick, first to you. Clinton now shifting the attack on Sanders about his lack of registration as a Democrat. Is that going to work?
No, it's not. Nobody really cares about it. There are certainly lines of attack that Hillary will have in store for Senator Sanders, but no, that one's not going to be of any value.
Brad, what would be your advice? I mean, is this something they should have gone after Sanders on a long time ago, or quite frankly, Hillary didn't consider him a threat when the campaign started?
No, they considered him token opposition, but it's turned into much more. But what does it say about Hillary Clinton that in a Democratic primary, she claims a Democrat is besting her in many primaries and has gotten a significant amount of delegates? If anything, it's a reflection on her, not him. And by the way, the problem with Hillary is she's been in the trenches too long. People have seen her, they know her, they don't like her, nor do they trust her, Republicans and Democrats.
Rick,
she's got 2.5 million more votes than her opposition, so that's worth mentioning.
And she does have a handle on the super delegates as well in the Democratic Party. Rick, as the resident New Yorker, is it possible that Bernie could beat Hillary in the Empire State? And if he does, what happens then?
It's certainly possible. I think it's probably unlikely when you look at the composition of New York. It's very different than what you find in Wisconsin and some of the other states where Bernie's done so well. Possible, yes. Bernie has come from behind many times before, so it could happen again. If it were to happen, the truth is he's not going to beat her by enough to make a further dent in her delegate count. It certainly would be embarrassing for Mrs. Clinton to lose her home state. That would not be good from a momentum point of view. But the truth is, he has to win so much of the vote to have any real impact at the convention that I think that ship has sailed. But it would embarrass her if it happened.
Well, beyond embarrassment, it's just kind of curious to look at this, Brad, and the internal politics there in New York. In the city, for example, Mayor de Blasio, even though he lurches about as far left as Bernie, he's backing Hillary. Does Mayor de Blasio, does he figure as a big player in the upcoming New York primary? Does it help Hillary?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a wash. He's an abysmal failure as a mayor. I mean, that's across the board. He's not going to. The best thing de Blasio could do is sit out. Hillary is well known in New York. She has her own record as a U.S. senator. Certainly, you know, the Clintons have managed to carpetbag 3 states as their quote unquote home, and New York is one of them. And it's a delegate-rich state. So Bernie's not going to do as well as he could be if he was a legitimate New Yorker himself. But he's more of a New Yorker than Hillary is, and look who's going to win the primary.
Let's cross the aisle and go ahead very quickly.
I just feel the need to come back. I am not a big fan of the mayor of New York City. I'm really not. It's no secret. But abysmal failure is a bit much. We did just get the statistics on murder rates in the city, and they're the lowest they've been since they started recording it. So is he my favorite mayor? Not by a long shot. Abysmal favor, a bit of political hyperbole.
Well, we always wonder, too, though, Rick, to be fair, if they started using Chicago accounting there in Gotham. But maybe not.
Yeah, no, we're a little stricter.
All right, fair enough. Listen, I want to cross the aisle to talk about Trump versus Cruz in New York. Brad, this anyone but Trump movement that carried such weight in Wisconsin, does it carry over in any way to Trump's home state of New York?
It might. If he doesn't get more than 50%, then he's still a plurality candidate. But in his home state, that's unacceptable. Look, New York is to Trump what Florida was to Rubio. And he's got to win. He's got to win big. And he's got to get more than 50% of New York. Otherwise, it's seen as a failure. And not only a failure in perception, but a failure in delegate take. So this is Trump's legitimate home. He was able to win in his second home in Florida, but this is his domicile. It would be very hard for Trump to have the kind of arguments he wants to advance after New York if he doesn't win big.
Rick, as you gaze from across the aisle, I'm interested in your assessment with about 45 seconds left. Is Donald losing what credibility he had with women voters, and will this really hurt him geographically and politically in the Northeast?
Well, to look at the national polls, you certainly would have thought so. I mean, 70 to 75% of women now have an unfavorable viewpoint. But what really surprised me, looking at the exit polls in Wisconsin last night, he did not appear to lose any of the female voters he had versus a couple weeks ago before he had these strange couple weeks. So I have to tell you, I'm scratching my head. If you're a Trump supporter and you're a woman, you're probably still a Trump supporter and you're a woman.
All right, and you two are both gentlemen whom we appreciate. From New York City, Rick Ungar, and from Washington, D.C., Brad Blakeman. You have our thanks. You heard what these gents had to say. Agree or disagree? Send your comments to me at newsmaxtv.com/comments or via Twitter at NewsmaxPrime. Up next, Liz Mayer